Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the RFA, and to do that you need to go to the Grants Gateway, but you do not need to log in. There's what's called the Grant Opportunity Portal, which allows you to access and view any grant opportunity that's out there in the state, and just to look at it and read the RFA. So that's what we're going to do here without even logging in. So I would go to grantgateway.ny.gov, and you can see I've done that up here. The address actually is a bit longer than that, but all you have to do is type in grantgateway.ny.gov, and it'll bring you to this page. Now I could log in up here in the top left, but instead I'm going to search or browse for grant opportunities. So I'll search, clicking the Search Now button. I'm going to search for the word Chesapeake. And you could narrow it down even more. You can sort by funding agency or service area or things like that. But I'm pretty sure Chesapeake will bring us to where we want to be. And I hit search, and it does. We can see Chesapeake Bay Watershed Grant Program for Riparian Buffer Protection and Restoration, Round 1. Okay, so it's offered by the DEC. We saw the name of it. It is currently available. And you can be a governmental entity, a not-for-profit, or a tribal organization to apply for it. In my example, I'm going to be a not-for-profit. It was posted on February 15th, and it is due on April 14th. So your applications are due on April 14th. So if we click on this link here, we can see that it gives us a little more information. Every grant opportunity has its own unique ID. In this case, it's DEC01 CBay1-2016. So if you were to start an application, which I will do in a few minutes, your application would be DEC01 CBay1-2016 a 5-digit number. So the first person to start it would be 00001 and so on. Okay, again, we can see it's from the DEC. We can see the full name of it that we read already. We can see the contact name and email if you have any questions. And we can see what's called the solicitation profile. This is just a few paragraphs from the RFA just to explain what it's about, who it's for, who can apply, that kind of stuff. So you can see there's a few links here and some other information in this profile on the left. We'll do this view grant opportunity last. This is actually how we see the RFA. But back up here on the right, we can see that the applications are due not only on the 14th, but by 3 p.m. on the 14th. So that's important to realize because the system will prevent you from submitting an application at 3 o'clock on April 14th. So if you do it at 2:59 and 52 seconds, that's no problem. But if you wait until 3 o'clock, it's not going to let you submit it. So we do try to let people, or try to encourage people to try to submit their applications, 24, 48 hours in advance. And the reason we say to do that in advance, there might be required fields that maybe you've missed or forgotten to do. And if you're trying to submit it at the last second and the system comes back and says, wait a minute, you forgot this one section, well, you might have run out of time. So we want you to have enough time to get it done in time and submit it before the deadline. And I only say this from experience because there's been way too many people that have waited till the last minute and missed their opportunity because they didn't finish it in time. Okay, so we anticipate that awards will be announced around July 12th. These are 3-year contracts. There's $1 million in funding available, and each contract would be between $50,000 and $1 million. Letter of intent is not required, so don't worry about that. But you can submit questions if you want us to answer questions about your proposal. Is this type of thing allowed? Things that you need to clarify in the RFA. So questions can be emailed to this email address right here, nonpointsource@dec.ny.gov, and you have to email them by March 31st, and the DEC will upload the answers to those, and it'll be a link right here actually. So you can see there's nothing here because they haven't answered the questions yet, but as questions start coming in and answers are provided, you'll be able to find them right here in a link in this section. Okay, who can apply? We already talked about that. Who is this grant targeting? You can see it's for organizations, governmental entities, and not-for-profits. And what is the service area? It's environmental supports. What this does is it drives the emails. If you had signed up on the Grants Gateway website for emails to be alerted when grants are posted, if you selected environmental supports, you would receive an email when this one was posted a few weeks ago. Okay, So that's everything on this page, but again, I want to point to really the details are in here, this View Grant Opportunity. This is where you actually get to the RFA. So I'll click on it and open this PDF, and we can see this is the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Grant Program RFA. Again, there's that ID, DEC01 CBay 2016, that deadline, the webinar that we're talking about right now that we're in. Here's the link to the webinar. Table of contents for this RFA is on page 3, and then we get into, obviously, the details. So it talks about grants reform. I'm not going to go through all of this. This basically explains why we do this in the Grants Gateway. Talks about pre-qualification and registration. So this is important to realize that your organization needs to be, first of all, registered in our system so you could log in and actually start an application. And once you're registered, if you're a not-for-profit, you need to be pre-qualified. So pre-qualification is the act of providing us with required forms and documents that a not-for-profit should have and letting us review them in the Grants Gateway, so that we can basically see that you're a well-run not-for-profit. There's certain things that you have to be doing from a not-for-profit's perspective, and we want to make sure that that's taken care of. So you need to be pre-qualified before you can apply for this. So if your organization isn't, you can be working on both at the same time. You can be working on your application and pre-qualification at the same time, as long as your pre-qualification has been approved, reviewed, and you are now pre-qualified by the due date of this grant opportunity. Okay, again, that's only for not-for-profits. Another thing is roles. When we set you up in the system, when your organization registers, we give you 1 or 2 accounts. Usually it's 2, and those 2 people are what's called the Grantee Delegated Administrators. So the person in the role of Grantee Delegated Administrator, which you can see is right here, can edit users, add users to their account, and work on the document vault. So those are the only 2 things they can do. Work on the document vault, and if you need to add new accounts, they do it. So we leave it up to you to decide who can do what in the Grants Gateway on behalf of your organization. So you're going to need some people in some different roles, because you need someone who can apply for a grant, which a Grantee Delegated Administrator cannot, and you need somebody who can submit that application, which may be someone different than your grant writer. So there's 2 accounts that we'll use as I go through this system here. One is the grantee account. That's someone who can start an application and edit and save it, but they can't submit it to us. The other person that I'll log in as is the Grantee Contract Signatory, who can start, edit, save an application, and submit it to us before the due date. So you can see there's a link here to some details about how that works as far as the role and permissions in our system. Okay, some more about registration, some more about pre-qualification, and then it gets into the details of this grant opportunity. So I'm not going to go into this. You can see there's a lot of guidance here as far as information in this RFA and links. So I'm going to scroll through a few pages here. Okay, so it talks about program eligibility criteria and information. So you need to make sure that your program follows within these rules or within these requirements. You can see there's eligible program types right here. Scrolling through here. Other requirements, some qualifications. Then it talks about the requirements in the application. You need to provide an expenditure-based budget, and we'll go through that in a few minutes when I do my sample application. You also have to provide a work plan, and a work plan is basically, it's the objectives, tasks, and performance measures that allow you to kind of show what you need to do and how you can prove that the steps have been taken for your project. There's a worksheet that'll show you that can help you fill it out, that can help you organize your thoughts so that you can put it into the Grants Gateway. It also talks about how your program application will be evaluated. So applications would come in after the due date. The DEC then reviews and evaluates those applications and decides who they're going to fund based on the strength of the applications. So you're not judged against other applications. You're judged solely on your own based on have you met the criteria that we're looking for. So you can see there are some criteria here in this section 4. Talks about bonus points, and then it gets into if you were awarded the contract, what would happen after as far as payments and reporting, expenditures, and things like that. Again, more information about what to expect if you receive an award in section 6 here. Talks about MWBE, which is a state requirement. I'll let you get into that reading this. And then the criteria for what you're going to be, your application is going to be judged on when it's reviewed, the evaluation criteria. Okay, and it says the total maximum amount of points is 104. And it ends with a checklist here. So use this checklist to ensure applicant eligibility, program eligibility, and proper application completion. So we want to make sure that your application is complete. So you can use this, and it's attached separately that I'll show you in a little while as well, just to make sure that you can double check that you've done everything that's required for this application. So if you can check off all the boxes, you know that your application is complete. Okay, so that's the last page of this RFA. You can see it's 22 pages here. So again, that was getting into the grant opportunity portal, searching the portal for the word Chesapeake, or searching for this particular opportunity, and clicking on this view grant opportunity to actually look at the RFA. So now that I've looked at the RFA, I'm going to log in and actually start an application. Okay, so let me go back to the main page here. Again, if you go to the Grants Gateway website, grantsgateway.ny.gov, and we click on the Grants Gateway login in the top left, you'll be able to log into the system. Your username will have been emailed to you, and your password or temporary password would have been emailed to you in a separate email. You'd log in the first time and then change your password, and then you can start working in the system. Now, for this demo purposes, I'm going to log into a different system, a testing system. It looks exactly like the live system, but I can do things without affecting the real live system. So I'm going to log in here as someone in the role of grantee, and my name will be jgrantee1. It's asking me to change my password, which I will do. So the first time you log in, it does ask you to change your password, or if it has expired after 90 days, you just type your new password here and confirm it and hit save. And now I can go back to the home up in the top left, and I'm at the home page of the Grants Gateway. So first, let's just talk about the layout of the gateway. We have up here on top links to allow you to search. So you can search in the Grant Opportunity Portal, which is what we just looked at a little while ago. No need to do that again. You can search for applications or contracts that your organization has. So when I start this application, I'd be able to click here and search for it to find it again. Same thing for contracts. If you end up getting awarded a contract, you can click here and search for contracts based on the name or the opportunity ID or the contract number or different criteria there. Progress reports are things that you may or may not use if you receive a contract. These are reports that you can report on your performance measures that are in your work plan. So these are often quarterly reports that DEC would have you submit electronically. Tasks are things that are assigned to somebody at your organization. So for instance, if you're working on a contract, if you have a contract, somebody might need to make some edits or sign it, and that would be a task for somebody that you could click here and search for based on the type of document, like a contract or application, or even the person that it might be assigned to. Maybe somebody at your organization is on maternity leave and you need to take care of her contracts that she has. You could search for her name and see those tasks. So applications, contracts, and tasks are ways that you can find the applications and contracts that are awarded to your organization. Of course, in our example here, we don't have one yet. So back to the home page. The black bar here, just some reference for you, training materials. There's some links to some videos and manuals. Organization is my organization. This is my sample organization here. It would show you all the different members of your organization and the details of it. Profile is your personal profile where I changed my password before, and log out would obviously log you out. This blue bar, there's a little help button here, which will just give you a little information based on the page that you're on. But there will be also a save button if you're on a page that allows you to make some changes and save. So we'll be aware of that as we get through because we're going to be saving our progress. Next, you can see that there are two options here, View Available Opportunities and My Inbox. Now, if there were any tasks associated to me, there'd be a third one called My Tasks. So I don't have one yet, but once I start this application, I will. So you can ignore the inbox. You'll never use this. This is just a copy of any emails that were sent to you from the system. So there's nothing you can do through there. There's no actions you can take. But what we want to do is go to View Available Opportunities and search for this grant opportunity. So we click on View Opportunities. Remember, I'm logged in and with somebody in the role of grantee. And it can show me the whole list that's out there, but I don't want to do that. I want to search just for Chesapeake. Okay, and I search for it, and of course, I found the one that we want. So I click on it, and this looks exactly like what we saw before when we were in the portal. The main difference, though, is this. I can now click on this button to apply for the grant. So if you were not logged in, you were looking at the portal, all you're seeing is the RFA, the link to the RFA. If you're logged in and you went through the home page, you can now click on Apply for Grant Opportunity, which is what I'll do. Okay, so there's only been one application started already, so I am application number 2. You can see I am DEC01 CBA1 2016-17-00002. Okay, so we now have a couple extra buttons here. We can see this back button here and these green buttons. So menu, it's kind of misleading. It's not really a menu. It brings you back to this main page that we're on, the application main page. So you can always get back here. The only thing it'll show us is the project title, the grant funds, and the total project cost once we start entering in our application. Forms menu is where we're going to do all of our work, so I'll show that last. Status changes is where you're going to be able to actually submit the application when we're done with it. Management tools, there's one little option here we'll use to add our signatory to it. And then you could also check for errors. So there are certain fields that are required in the system, and if you didn't do those, the system would point it out to you. No need to do it now because, of course, we have nothing filled out yet. And then progress reports and related documents. This is if you had a contract, there would be your progress reports and related things there. So you can ignore that for now. But we will go to the forms menu, and you can see I can hover over it and see the menu. It's a bit finicky. If you get off of it with your mouse, you'll lose it. So we do suggest everybody just clicks on the forms menu, and you can see the menu as a whole here. So I'll walk through the different sections of this forms menu. The actual work that you're going to be doing starts here at Program Information. But we'll look at this contract document properties. This is just an example of what a contract would be built from. So this is the sample master contract for grants. This just shows you what a state contract looks like. The attachment A1, this is the program or the DEC specific terms and conditions, and you can view it individually right here. And you can see A2, this is the federal terms and conditions because there's federal funding available here, and we can see that as well if I clicked on View File. And if we were to scroll down, there are no other attachments. So this is just showing you what would make up a contract. There's nothing you need to do there, it's all just for your information. Next, we could print our application, which of course is blank right now, so no need to do that yet. Here's another link to the RFP, which I have open, and I would say you certainly should be referring to that as you're working through it. So not only read it and read it thoroughly when you first look at it, but have it open or have it available so that you can refer to it as you're answering your questions and filling out your application. Application instructions, this is a link to, and let me just point out that because I'm in this test system, every link I click on will be an error, and I just have to fix it here, and it'll work fine. So realize that will not happen to you in the real system. This is just a part of working in this test system here. So this is a guide to get you started. It's an 8-page document that will walk you through how to get to, how to do the application, basically what I'm doing right now. So realize that's available as well. Okay, that was this application instructions. Application versions, once I submit my application, I'll be able to look at it in a nice PDF. So that's everything, all the answers I've provided, all the attachments I've provided, and so on. So let's get into actually filling out our application, and we'll start with the project site address. So this doesn't have to be, if your program is, expansive as far as geographic area, this is just basically, where your program is run out of. So I'll just call it Jeff's Chesapeake Bay Project, and my address is just going to be 123 Main Street. Okay, so there's two other options down here. There's this regional council, and you can see NA is an option. This is a not required field. So you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. It has no bearing on your application. But if you wanted to know what it's about, it's referring to this. If you went to regionalcouncils.ny.gov, this is the Regional Economic Development Councils in the state, and you can see, based on your geographic area, which council you're part of. So some grant opportunities might use this for review purposes or just for data purposes, but in this case, it's not required, so there's no reason for you to answer that. But there is this agency-specific region they want you to pick, and you need to pick one of these. So obviously, I'm in Albany, and I'm going to pick this one, DEC Region 4. And I'll hit Save. Okay, and you can see when I hit Save, I get the green light, the information has been saved. If I forgot to do something that was required, for instance, my project name, you know it's required because it has this red asterisk here. If I hit Save, it'll save this page, so I haven't lost everything, but it does give me the error, project name description is a required field. I can leave it blank, come back another day and do it, but if I try to submit my application with this error here or any other error, it won't let me, and it will fail until I fix the errors. So I'll hit Save again, and you can see that error has gone away. And we'll move on to the next page, which if I hover over the Forms menu, I can click on, or I can just click back on the Forms menu and scroll down and go to Program-Specific Questions. Okay, so it starts with your project title, and we'll fill out, everybody should just fill out Chesapeake Bay Watershed Grant Program. And then it gets on to the questions that you need to answer for this application. So some of them are yes/nos, some of them are text-based, some of them are text, larger text boxes you can see here, and either offer or require an upload from you. You can see the difference between number 3 and 4. 3 requires you to upload because of the red asterisk. 4 allows you to if you have something that you want to upload. Some of them have, again, there's a yes/no NA with an attachment. And you can see there's 17 total questions. So you need to be answering these questions either by typing them in here, or what we suggest is you read them. You can print out this page, or you can do the preview and print out this page and answer it maybe in a Word document and then copy and paste your answers in here. There's a couple reasons we say that. One, you can spell check and just kind of make sure it looks good in Word before you paste it in here. And also because, as you can see, as I type, it's counting the number of letters, but it's only showing me 3 lines at a time. And it's just hard to see what you've written in its entirety, having to scroll through it. So we suggest you type it in Word or something like that and copy and paste. And the other reason, though, is you will time out after 20 minutes of inactivity in the system. And activity is seen as when you hit Save or you change the page. So if you're sitting here on this page and just typing and typing and typing, and 20 minutes go by and you haven't hit the Save button, you've lost all of your work. So with that said, we do suggest that you hit the Save button every few minutes, every 5 or 10 minutes really at the max. Again, it'll time you out after after 20 minutes. So I'm going to go through here, and let's say I did answer it in Word, and now I've come back and I'm going to answer my questions. So yes, I'm eligible, and I'm going to just answer these by typing this. Here is my answer. And maybe I have a few paragraphs here like that. And you can see I'm at 255 words, so I would if I got out of it, it would give me an error. So you need to make sure your answers, or I said 250 words, I meant 250 characters. You need to make sure that your answers fall within the criteria that are allowed. Okay, so this one is explain the organization, how you'll be able to complete the proposed program identified in the application within 3 years. And they want you to provide a single PDF file of the anticipated timeline. So I can explain it here in up to 4,000 characters, and I need to attach my timeline. So you can just simply click on Browse, and I just have some kind of fake documents I'll use called Sample Attachment, and I've attached that here. I will attach it when I hit Save. So attachments, we would like you to include PDFs. It's much better to have native PDFs, not things that were scanned in a scanner. But they'll work. It's just they appear better and they work better if they're native PDFs. So if you had a Word doc or some image and you saved as a PDF, that's better. Okay, I've done that. And I'm just going to go through and answer these questions. So here's some more answers. You know, it's up to you guys to read the questions and know how to answer it. My goal here is to show you how to technically do it, not to actually show you how to answer questions. All right, this one, if there's partners, they want you to attach agreements with those partners. So let's say I do have one, and I'll just find my attachment again. I'll start answering number 6. And actually, 6 is actually typing the percentage. So let's say it's, well, you guys read it and understand. But what is the estimated number of acres? You know, put in your number there. So let's say now is a good time for me to hit Save. I'll hit Save. And it saved my 1 through 7, but of course I haven't done 8 through 17 yet. So the attachments that I saved, instead of it being here, I can now click on View File and see the attachment I included. In this case, it's just a sample attachment. So you would want to double check clicking the View File here, making sure that what you attached to number 3, and in my case to number 5, were what you intended to attach. Okay, so again, I went through 1 through 7, and let's say I want to go to lunch or go home for the day and come back and work on this later. That's no problem. I could log out, log back in, and when I go home, you can see I now have something new on my home page. I have my tasks, which we didn't have before. So I can click on My Tasks, and I can see there's that application number 2 that we just started for my organization called Sample Organization. So that's easy enough to do that. What if you were somebody who didn't start the application, but you wanted to work on it? You can have more than one person working on it at a time. You could have someone working in the budget, let's say, and someone working in the work plan or the questions. That's no problem. But only one person will have that as a task to begin with. Doesn't matter, though. Anybody else can go here to Applications and search. And again, we'll just search for the word Chesapeake. And I can find all the applications that my organization has started with the word Chesapeake in it. And of course, we only have one, this application number 2 here. So I'll click on that, and I can pick up where I left off, back to the Forms menu, and back to the program-specific questions. We've got the error here because, of course, I only answered up through 7, and I'll click on this and keep going. Now, for purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to skip question number 8. Let's say I forgot to do it, and I'm not going to do it until the very end just to show you how the system works with an error of something that we've missed. So I know that I missed 8, but let's just pretend that we don't realize it yet. Okay, I'll answer these questions. And these. Hopefully you're copying and pasting from Word at this point. And I'll hit Save. So I've done that, and of course, question 8 is a problem. Oops, hold on. Question 8 is a problem, but I'm going to ignore that for now. All right, so let's move back to the Forms menu. And we've done the first section, ignoring this error. Next is our budget. And what we have here is there's a couple categories that you can fill out. You've got personal services salary, contractual, travel, equipment, and other. And I have an example budget that I'm going to use for my fake application here. So I'm going to start with salary. And I'm going to go with the program manager. Okay, and their role or responsibility is to communicate and negotiate land purchases. I'm not going to type the whole thing out. I'll just say managing the program. Yours would be a lot more descriptive than that. We've got one person doing this, and their annual salary is, let's say, $50,000, and they work for 40 hours a week. They are going to be 25% funded for 24 months, let's say. So we're asking for, what are we asking for? $25,000. So you can see 25%, but times 2 years is going to be 50%. All right, so I'll hit save. And I can see that right now I'm asking for $25,000 from this grant. Now, if I had somebody else, I could add somebody. That's no problem. Once I hit save here, notice I now have an add button. So I'll click add, and I'll say, you know, another position. And let's say this is $50,000 again, and let's say 40 and 10% for 24 months. So we'll do $20,000. Or we'll do $10,000, and I'll hit save. Okay, so now I can see I'm asking for $35,000 in this category, my 25 plus 10. All right, so now I've added something. I can see they both appear here in this drop down, and if I click add again up here, it'll give me another one, a third and a fourth, and so on I can do. All right, so I'm good with that, but now there's a couple other things you can do. One thing you should do is fill out the narrative. Now, if we go back to the Forms menu, you can see that there's a narrative for each section. And I already did 2 entries in the salary, and I'm going to enter a narrative. Now, narrative is not required by the system, but I believe DEC would like you to fill this out and explain, you know, why you're asking for these positions. So here is my answer. Yours would, you can see it says, provide an explanation of any exceptions in staffing patterns and or annual salary costs. Explain how you came to that number, explain what they're going to be doing, that kind of thing. So I'll hit save on that. All right, I'll go back to the Forms menu, and let's say I have some contractual to fill out as well. So I'll say I have restoration contracts. Invasive something like that. And I'm asking for $75,000. And I'll hit save. You might be wondering what these other fields are. Match funds and other funds. Notice they're grayed out, so it doesn't let me fill them out. There's not a requirement for match, and we don't need to know if there's any other funds contributing towards this. I think it'll be all funded by the grant. And let's say I have one more item. First of all, I should do my narrative. So here's my narrative. And I'll hit save. And I'll do travel as well. Forms menu, travel. Okay, expenses associated with travel to project sites. Let's say I'm asking for $1,000 here. And I'll hit save. Okay, so I've gone through, and actually let's do my narrative, one more thing. So my travel narrative. and I'll hit save on that. So I've gone through and I've filled out a couple sections. Let's take a look at what my budget looks like. If I scroll down and go to my expenditure summary, you can see I'm asking for $111,000, which is $35,000 in salary, 75 plus the 1 here is 76, which adds up to 111. So that's what I'm requesting in my grant. It falls within the parameters of the RFA, so that's good. And if we go back to the forms menu, I'm done with the budget section. You can see I could have filled out lines for equipment, excuse me, and for other. Again, what's allowed and what can be filled out is listed in the RFA. All right, so we have two other sections to do, the work plan and the pre-submission uploads. So let's go to the work plan overview form. And this is just, first of all, it has you fill out your work plan period. And I don't remember when these are supposed to start. Let's say mine is 10/1/2017 to 9/30/2019. So I'll do 2 years here. But what's a required field here, two of them, are the project summary and the organizational capacity. So project summary is it says high-level overview, but it really could be detail. It's up to 50,000 characters. This is really you telling us what are you going to be doing in this project. All right, so take advantage of the room that you have. Take advantage of the fact that you should be doing it in Word or something like that, spell checking it, and then copy pasting in here. You can certainly use bullet points and things like that. It will retain that formatting. So I'm just going to fill out my summary here. I mean, you don't have to go to 50,000 characters. I'm good here with my 740, let's say. Organizational capacity. This says describe the staffing, qualifications, and ongoing staff development, training activities, etc. Basically, what makes your organization actually capable of performing this project? All right, so you'll fill this out as well. And you'll hit save. So that's the first part of the work plan. You'll notice work plan has kind of three components here. Project summary, organizational capacity, and then the project details, which have three other components, which are the objectives, tasks, and performance measures. All right, so if we were to go back to forms menu, we can get to objectives and start working on that. But I want to show you first how to lay it out and how you should be thinking about it. If we scroll down here, remember we were here in work plan, and we're going to be going to objectives. But there's a little guidance for you here in this pre-submission uploads. This is a section where the state agency can provide attachments for you to fill out or to review or whatever. In this case, there's only two of them. There's the work plan worksheet, which is what I'm going to look at, and a checklist to make sure that things are done at the end. So we'll look at both of those. But let's take a look at this work plan worksheet, which if I can click here, again, this is in the test system, it's going to give me the error. In your real one, it wouldn't, but I'll just fix this and view it. And it's a Word document that allows me to fill out my project name that we just did, the work plan period that we just did, the project summary that we just did, and then our work plan details, the objectives, tasks, performance measures. So this is a good way of you organizing it so that you can put it into the gateway. You can see we give you a few different options for objectives. The way it works is this. You must have at least one objective, one task, and one performance measure. So the objective is the very high level. The task is, the milestones to get to that, and the performance measures are the details of how do you measure that we've accomplished this. Is it dates? Is it numbers of widgets or things like that, or is it specific goals that are textual based? So we can accept all of those, and you can have one or many objectives, and each objective can have one or many tasks. You can see in this one we have 3 spaces, but you can have more than that if you wanted. And each task can have one or many performance measures. We have 3 for each here, but you can have many more than that if you want. So many objectives, can have many tasks, can have many performance measures. It's up to you how you lay it out. Now, I would spend my time to fill this out and clearly explain what our project is going to be doing. And I've got one here that was provided to me that I'm going to use. So I've got land acquisition, and here are the tasks for that. Buffer restoration, and here are the tasks for that. So I'm not going to do all of this. It's just a lot of copying and pasting that you'll be doing yourself. I think once I do a few, you'll get the point. So we're going to start with land acquisition. If I go back to my application, and we'll look at this checklist later in the pre-submission uploads. Back to my application, back to the forms menu, and back to the objectives. So what's my first objective? If I go back here to my cheat sheet, land acquisition. Okay, it asks for a description, but you can see it's not a required field. There's no red asterisk there. So if you want to type something there, you can. I'm not going to bother. And I've hit save. Now that I've hit save, not only does it save it, but if I hover over the forms menu, I now notice I have another option, which is tasks. So let's go to tasks. Okay, I don't have any tasks yet, but for the objective of land acquisition, I want a task of outreach to landowners. So I'll do that. And then a description if you would like. You can see, again, not required. The difference is, though, this would, if you had a contract, this would be displayed on the contract. So here is the description. You can see there's room to type it here if you wanted to, but notice there's a difference between the name and the description. So I'll hit save on that. Now there's two things I can do here. I can add another task because we know we have B and C I'd like to add, or I can start adding my performance measures for each task. I think I'll do it this way. I'm going to add a performance measure next. I'm going to copy that, and hovering over my forms menu brings me to performance measure. So I'll do that. And so for objective land acquisition and task outreach, I'm going to do this, my solicit landowners. So you can see that's the list there. That's what I wrote here. But I need to have two things. Notice this is now a required field in performance measure. So I'll say something like this. The name will be solicit landowners, but the narrative will be solicit landowners through media campaigns, letters, etc. And I'll hit save. So when I preview my application later on, I'll show you how this lays out. Okay, so I've done one performance, or one objective, one task, one performance measure. All right, if I go back to my sample, that was all I had for this first one. Let's now go create a second task called purchase conservation easement. All right, so I'll go back on my forms menu. I can go back to tasks, and I've got the one task, so why don't I click add to add another task. And here's that one. And again, if I wanted to describe it, I could. So now I've got one objective, two tasks, and you can see it's just like we did in the budget. I could now toggle between the drop-down here of the different tasks. But I'm going to stay on this one, and I'm going to go to Forms menu and add performance measures for the task of purchase conservation easement. And I've already written them down. So one of them is negotiate terms. So I'll do negotiate terms and then put that in there. And I'll do my other one, which is draft easement language. So I'll click on add. So now I have, for my second task, I'm going to have two performance measures. Okay, so I'll call it easement language and then the narrative there. And I might as well add the third, which is file paperwork. So I'll click on add. And maybe you should have things that are measurable. So file paperwork by, whatever date. and hit save. Okay, so now I have one objective, two tasks, and then these related performance measures. I'm not going to do this one, C, but what I will do is I'll do one more objective and one more task and performance measure. So if I go all the way back to objectives, forms menu, I can go to tasks, forms menu, I can go to objectives. Of course, I only have one objective called land acquisition. Let's add the second one called buffer restoration. So I'm going to click on add, enter it in, hit save. I'm now going to add a task for this one. So for buffer restoration, my task name is prepare bid process. And then I'm going to add my performance measures. In my example here, I'm just going to add one, which is just selecting properties. So notice I'm not copying the Roman numerals or the letters here, because that would be redundant, and you'll see once we preview it what it looks like. Okay, and again, maybe you want to include dates or details that can be measured. All right, so I think I've gone through enough on that part, the actual performance measures. So again, if I drill back through to tasks, I can get back to objectives and keep going, adding more objectives, or going down to tasks and adding more tasks. If I click back on forms menu, you can see I can start back at objectives right here, and I could actually click on either one of those. Okay, so the last one here is the pre-submission upload. So you can see there's one more that I'll mention, but the only thing that's required is one more thing here. All right, so we have the work plan worksheet, but we also had this checklist. And I say required, it's not really required. You can see there's no red asterisk here, but you should do it. Use this checklist to ensure applicant eligibility, program eligibility, and so on. So if I click on this, it's going to give me that error again. Of course, it's only because of my testing system. If you clicked on it, you would see this, and you can open it, and you can see the pass-fail criteria, the uploads, the forms, basically making sure that you've done everything that's required to take care of this application. All right, so if you wanted to, you could check this off, or just, print it yourself and say, just use it for yourself. Okay? So I know that there's an error. Remember, I forgot to answer that question 8, but let's pretend we don't remember that. One last thing here, back to the forms menu, is the grantee document folder. If there's anything you need to attach here, you can do that. Like maybe you wanted to attach that checklist to prove that you checked it off. It's simply just type in the name, click on browse, and attach it, and then hit the save button. If you had more, you could click on the add button and add more. There's nothing required here though, so you may not use it. We don't want you to abuse it. Don't start attaching so many things that we don't need and will be, kind of a pain for our reviewers to look at. Okay, so remember, I'm Jeff Grantee. I'm in the role of grantee, which means I can't submit this application. I can only start it and save it. I'm going to pretend I don't notice this error, but I think I'm done, and I want maybe my supervisor to review it and submit the application. So how do we do that? Well, they could just log in and start working on it. That's no problem. If they're in the right role, they can work on it. But I'll make it a little easier for him, and I'll go to Management Tools and Add Edit People. So it's one of those green buttons, Management Tools, Add Edit People. And it's basically saying add people, add a task to people for this grant application. I'm going to pick this guy, Jeff Signatory, who happens to be a Grantee Contract Signatory. He's the guy that can start, save, edit an application, but also submit it. And you need one of those or else you'll never be able to submit your application. So I'll hit save. And it says my data has been saved. He now has a task. So I'm going to log out. He didn't get an email, though. I probably told him. And I'll log in as this person. Okay, I've logged in. You can see I'm in the role now of Grantee Contract Signatory. And I do have a task, and of course that's going to be application number 2, the one that we were just working on. I could click on it, pick up where we left off. If you didn't do that for me, and I still wanted to find it, that's no problem. I can go to Applications. I can search for the word Chesapeake or Bay. And I can find, there's one because it's got the word Chesapeake Bay Watershed Grant Program. So I can click on it and get to it this way again. Now, I'm not locked out. I can make changes to anything that the other person has just done. I could go in here and, add something here under the travel narrative. I'm going to explain it a little more. That's no problem. Go back to the Forms menu. We can notice that Jeff Grantee started this and first saved it at 10:39 and 41 seconds, but Jeff Signatory came back and saved it at 10:55. So there's a little history here to show you who's done what when. Okay, so I think that I'm done. Of course I'm not because we have this error here. But let's do one other thing. We can preview the application by going to this print application. Not very elegant, but it does get you there. It lets you see all the answers to all the questions that you've provided. Now, it asks me if I want to print it. I could PDF it or something. I'm just going to hit cancel. But you can see, here's the name of it. Here's the first page I did, remember, was the address at 123 Main Street. And then I answered my questions here. Here's all my answers. Now, some of them required uploads, remember. Number 3 had an attachment. Number 5 had an attachment. It doesn't show me the attachment. That's why you really should be back in the Forms menu and click on that View File. Remember, if I go back here to my program-specific questions, and I clicked on View File here, I'd see the actual attachment. In this preview, it doesn't show me the attachment. It just says that there is one. So it's a little limited in what you can see there, but I can see all the answers I've provided. I can see my budget. Here's my program manager, another position, and so on. I can see my expenditure summary. There's that $111,000. My work plan, here's my answer to my project summary, my org capacity, and then my objectives, tasks, and performance measures. So that's everything I've filled out. I could use this to review it, and I think it's good, and now I'm ready to submit it. Of course, you know I'm not because there'll be an error, but let's say we don't realize it still. You can go to Status Changes, and then Application Submitted. So you have to be in the right role. Of course, I'm the role of Grantee Contract Signatory. I can go to Status Change and try to submit it, and it's, of course, going to tell me, wait a minute, you forgot to do number 8. It also gave me another error, which can be frustrating at times, but it only needs you to look at it. And what it's doing is this. If you remember, when I was going through the work plan, I went back into the first task after I'd already done the second one. And I think I'm up to save. So what it's doing is it's saying, hey, you made a change to something in your work plan that could have affected some of the other pages, so make sure that it really didn't. 99% of the time, your answer is going to be no, it didn't, and all you have to do is click on this, and the error will go away. So I can now try to submit it again, and the error will be gone, or I could do the last thing that I was going to call out, which is check global errors. I could do it there, or under Management Tools, check for errors. It'll go and find all the errors. And of course, now I only have 1, not the 2. So it'll never let me submit this until I take care of question number 8, which I've clicked on. I'll go down to 8 and answer it. Okay, now I'll hit save. And my error has gone away. Now, if I go to Status Change, Application Submitted, I'll be able to submit the application. So let's see what happens when I submit it. A couple things will happen. First of all, I'm currently in the status of Application in Process. That status will change. I'm also going to receive an email that says, congratulations, you submitted your application. Excuse me. And the third thing will be that, remember, I have a task right now, Well, I will no longer have a task because, of course, the application is no longer for us. It's now in the hands of the DEC. So let's do that. I'll go to status change and application submitted. It asked me to read and affirm this agreement here, and I'll click on I agree. And my application's been submitted. How do I know? Go to details. I can see it's in assignment of reviewers now. It's no longer in application in process. If I go to my home page, no tasks anymore. I've taken care of that one. I can still search for it. And see that it's in assignment of reviewers. And of course, I'll receive an email that says I've submitted it. Okay, so I've submitted my application, and what's going to happen in a few minutes is I'm actually going to be able to see this application PDF. So the application PDF would be found here in the Forms menu under Application Versions. So I just submitted it, and it takes 5 or 10 minutes to show up. I know that there isn't one because there's no timestamp here yet. So we'll come back in a few minutes and look at that and see what the application looks like. All right, so if I want to see the application that I've submitted in its entirety, it's very useful to kind of save for your records. It'll be here forever, so don't worry about losing it in the system. But if I go back to my Forms menu, I'm back in my application number 2 here. I go back to the Forms menu, and I can see application versions, and there's a timestamp here from a few minutes ago. I click on it, and I can see that I submitted it. Jeff Signatory is the guy that submitted it, and there's a link here to a PDF. So I'll click on that. I'd probably want to save it. In my case, I'm just going to open it. And here's my application in its entirety. So cover page is just the name of the opportunity. My application was application number 2. What did I call it? When did I submit it? And I'm asking for $111,000. Okay, second page is who signed it and when. Third page, there's my answer to the addresses. And remember, I picked the region of Region 4. Then I get out to the answer to the questions. So I can see I answered yes to number 1. Here's my answer to number 2, number 3. Now, there are attachments, remember. It's not going to show me in line with the question, but after the questions are done, I'll see this one attachment, so it'll be one attachment. There'll be a second. And did I do any more? So it looks like there'll only be 2 attachments. So here's my last answer to my last question, number 17. And then there's that first attachment and the second attachment. It then moves on to my budget. So there's the budget summary, which comes up to my $111,000. And I can see the different line items in the different sections. My personal services salary, $25,000 and $10,000. My justification for those, my narrative for those. Next is contractual, and there's that restoration contracts for $75,000. Again, justification and narratives. Travel, justification, narratives. And then we get onto the work plan. So I wanted to point this out to you so you can realize what a work plan looks like when you're done with it. Name, the summary, and then the work plan. Objective 1, task 1. So name dash description. So I go back in here just to show you. I'm going to go back to the Forms menu, back to the work plan, objectives, and I'll go to my tasks, and it's name, outreach to landowners, dash, description. I'll go back to my PDF, name, dash, description. Same thing for performance measure, name, dash, description. So that's how these appear, and this is why I told you not to worry about putting in the A or the 1s or the Roman numerals, because it's going to label them for you, number them for you. 1, task 1, performance measure 1. Task 2, performance measure 1, 2, and 3, and so on. Okay, there's my organizational capacity, and then any other attachments I made would be at the end of this. In my case, I didn't do any. You probably won't have any either, but if they were, they'd be at the end of this PDF. So 22-page PDF here. This encompasses all my answers and everything that I've submitted. This is what the DEC will use to evaluate your application. And that'll do it. So that's everything.